Hi, it's Tammy. I wanted to take a little time today to talk about why it is I do what I do, why I'm making these videos, and why it's so important for me to get the message out regarding how health conditions are related. Now, somebody can come in and present with a various number of concerns. They may be taking medications for a various number of health issues. But if you actually break it down and begin to analyze the mechanism with the way these pharmaceuticals work, you begin to understand really how the body is, where the imbalances are, is how I want to say it. And from there, being able to adapt essential oil work to support these pharmaceuticals as well as support the body, and more importantly, to begin to do what it's supposed to do. It's a miraculous thing that we've been given, and the breakdown isn't necessary. And I also want to make a really big issue out of addiction. We have, and mental illness. We have a lot of stigma in this country around mental illness and addiction. And so many people are going without help, or they're, for any number of reasons. And being able to normalize this in such a way that people can begin to understand and begin to see the world a little bit differently, see the people around them a little bit differently, and recognize the fact that, high blood pressure could be related to anxiety. And people will use substances such as alcohol or other illegal substances to help relieve their level of anxiety. So realizing that there's so many different factors that go into our health issues, and the chemical messengers, what they actually do, and how the different things work within the body. Like I said, there's various mechanisms that these medications work under, and being able to see what medications people are on. And for, even though there is a diagnosis, as far as I'm concerned, I work a lot with autism, and we talk about the spectrum, right? Autism is on a spectrum. As far as I can tell, this is the way it goes for virtually any health condition. You can have depression, you can have schizophrenia, you can have anxiety. It's really dependent upon, there's a spectrum. High blood pressure, there's a spectrum. So depending on what is going on in a particular individual is based on their genetic sequencing. So I want to talk a little bit about anxiety to kind of presence this, but this is really where I am very passionate about, is helping people to understand that there are very few differences, if any, within the individual. Now, if I had high blood pressure and my neighbor had high blood pressure, the chances of our health issues being the same are slim to none. There again, we were talking about the spectrum. It changes. I've been standing in lines in pharmacies where I've listened to people pick up antidepressants and a high blood pressure medication. Well, I'm not surprised, because dopamine, a neurotransmitter, is also important for regulating sodium and urine output. And if we're if we're not using the sodium properly, or we don't have enough dopamine, people who don't have a lot of dopamine sometimes will be placed on antidepressants. But if you don't have a lot of dopamine, now you're going to have the possibility of having high blood pressure is there. Now, like I said, a little bit about anxiety and addiction. So what are the reasons why people would have anxiety? Well, to begin with, I would work with somebody on their digestive issues. Even if they say they don't think they have it much, or their digestion is fine, my guess is that the digestion is out of whack somewhere. So restoring, and helping to restore digestion is imperative, number one, because the neurotransmitters and the hormones, the production of those are stimulated through the digestive system. That said, the reasons for we have anxiety could be high histamine levels, High histamine increases estrogen. So now you have, and this goes for men and women. So now you have two components that can make you a little bit wacky and a little bit on edge, depending again on your genetic sequencing. It's going to range. Another reason why you might have anxiety or dealing with anxiety would be overactive thyroid. If you have too much iodine in your system, if your body isn't using and there's too much iodine, it can create a feeling of anxiety. If the thyroid is overactive, it will cause us to be agitated and feel anxious. If we have blood sugar issues, so our fermentation cycle isn't working properly, we could potentially feel anxious. Another very important component is if our glutamate, which is another neurotransmitter, isn't being converted properly into either glutathione, which is an antioxidant, as well as GABA, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, then glutamate now is considered an excitatory neurotransmitter, and that's going to cause agitation and feelings of anxiety. And so this leads me into the component of addiction and alcoholism, or for that matter, opiate use. You see, alcohol, directly activates the GABA receptors. So that's the reason why when you take a drink, you feel relaxed. Now, if you have significant issues in this area of your genome, you're going to find alcohol very, very supportive. It would be another reason why people have chronic pain and they get involved with taking pharmaceuticals that, again, are either synthetic GABA or they activate the GABA receptors. Now, GABA, for as self-soothing as it is, if you have too much GABA in the body, now it'll cause agitation and anxiety. And you will also require more drink. You'll require more pharmaceutical. I don't want to offend anyone when I say this, but there really is not much difference. In fact, there is no difference. I'm going to be really bold here and say there isn't any difference between somebody who drinks alcohol and somebody who's using a pharmaceutical to either relieve pain or go to sleep or anything to help relax, because you're just using a prescription medication that the doctor has recommended versus using something else that that helps to do the very same thing. Now, when we talk about street drugs, and even for that matter, alcohol, I know some people actually find it very relaxing to smoke as well. And I'm not talking about cannabis, I'm talking about cigarettes. The reason why we experience that and why people turn to those is because, I hate to say this, but we are dealing with some significant insurance cost of healthcare in this country. And these are other mechanisms for achieving the same level of relief that those who can get the prescriptions are using. It's a lot faster. There's not a lot of headaches. So I am not, before I go any further, suggesting that addiction, as we know it on the streets, is a better way. And I'm just trying, like I said, really trying to level the playing field here and help all of us to understand that there aren't any differences other than the fact that one person got a prescription and one person is having to find another way. When we start to see it at that level, and yeah, there's a lot of behavioral things that come into play. There's a lot of psychological, social, and there's a lot of factors that get involved with this. And so, being able to, pardon me, I have an itch in my ear, being able to support someone lovingly and unconditionally, and recognizing that there's something going on with inside of them that it's that they would benefit from. And if we could collectively find ways to help one another, as opposed to sitting at arm's length and going, well, that's an alcoholic, but if I need to take gabapentin or Neurontin or um, Lyrica is another one, and these are all GABA, um, I'm within my right because a doctor said this is okay, but this person over here doesn't have this level, that's not okay for them because they're going off the charts. They're becoming risky. Well, yeah, there's a lot of concern over how somebody develops and how things get out of control. And yes, those who do use prescription medications, they do. I mean, it's not the same level of psychoactive effects. So again, I am not by any stretch of the imagination suggesting that addiction is a better way to go. And I'm just, again, really wanting people to understand that just like an alcoholic needs to take another drink or they need more alcohol to have the same effects, or somebody needs to have more heroin or more cocaine in order to have the same effects, consider that the prescription medications are the same way. There was a point in my life that I actually took Neurontin because I was really struggling with what we thought was nerve pain. And I want to say approximately 8 months' time, it was probably closer to 6 months' time. I went from 900 milligrams a day, because the standard is you work your way up, and then the therapeutic dosage is 900 milligrams a day. In 6 months, I was taking 2,700 milligrams a day because it wouldn't work any longer. I needed more. There isn't any difference between that and somebody requiring more cocaine or requiring more alcohol or needing another cigarette. That is the point I wanted to make. And again, what causes somebody to feel anxious is any number of chemical imbalances in the body. Recognizing the whole system. There again, we're talking about holistic approaches and realizing what else is going on in the body. We can effectively support anxiety. We can effectively support depression. And we can include effectively using essential oils that are specifically working to help with the pharmaceuticals, as well as to rebalance the body. So it's not working against, it's not counterintuitive, it's not, there's no negative interactions. And these are the reasons why it's important to understand what the oils actually contain, where they come from, as well as the pharmaceuticals that an individual is taking. It's not okay to with somebody on warfarin to put them on anything that's considered a blood thinner. And let me just say, a lot of oils actually have that effect. So there's a lot of caution that needs to be used if somebody's on warfarin. And, for me, telling somebody that they need to come off a medication doesn't feel right because they've been on it. They've got years of imbalances that have led to this health issue. So therefore, finding ways to help someone utilize their dopamine so that the sodium is being used, and for that matter, all the electrolytes, and increasing the electrolyte levels in their body, not in a way that it's going to be, again, interactive with the medication, but really finding this balance. Yes, I understand that this sounds very complex. However, it's not. It's just, it takes time. It takes more importantly, focus. It takes an understanding of how these systems work and how they interplay with one another. So, like I said, it's really necessary for me to emphasize why I do these videos. It is about leveling the playing ground. Addiction is a very big passion of mine. I have seen far too many people lose their lives, not from the use, but from other, well, I won't get into all the specifics. It's not just the use that's killing people. And I am not interested in holding people back. I'm interested in people enhancing their lives, and everybody deserves a chance, regardless of what we may want to believe about somebody being a bad person or having a weakness or not having the willpower or whatever else is going into this. Addiction knows no socioeconomic status. That's rampant through all economic statuses, the lower class, the middle class, the upper class. It doesn't make any difference how much money you make. We are all, in some ways, many of us are dealing with some form of addiction, and being able to help to regulate the body and bring a sense of peace, whether it be anxiety. Here's another one. It's a really good one. Because most people who are living with an addiction will say that they don't feel like they have an addiction. And they will let you know that they're they're perfectly in control. I don't agree with that. It's more a matter of acceptance and realizing that they're going to be accepted and coming forward. So exercise is a big one. That's one I see all over the place. I've literally heard people go, well, I exercise because I like food. That tells me that there is a significant eating disorder. Regardless of what it looks like to you or me, this person is really having problems with their own self-image. There is something going on, and exercise can be considered part of the binge purge cycle. Exercise can also, even though it looks like, hey, they're getting out there and they're developing that six pack, or they run every day, or they're over the top about it. Again, the person we view that as healthy, but it is possible to do too much exercising, and it is possible not to have the inability to just give themselves a chance to relax and really just, the word that I want to use is be lazy. Because even when they are taking a break from exercise for a day, their minds are generally racing because they think they have all these judgments. I'll just go that far. And there's also a level of anxiety. They have to be moving because they have all this pent up energy. They're unable to find a form of self-soothing. So, we talk about them. There's the autonomic nervous system, which actually helps to self-soothe, and endorphins play a big role in that. Exercise stimulates the production of it stimulates the production of endorphins, pardon me. And endorphins actually help to bring a sense of peace and help relax. Well, endorphins affect the opiate receptors. Now we're back into addiction, and in addiction to painkillers as well, because a lot of these painkillers are affecting the opiate receptors, and being able to recognize the ability to self-soothe with the support of these endorphins is hugely important, and realizing that it doesn't make any difference what the behavior is. It doesn't make any difference what the choice is, that there is a level of similarity that we are ignoring as a society. And so helping someone through the use of essential oils to find that sense of peace, because if they're on a medication and it is helping to relieve pain, it is possible to use the medication and help affect and support the immune system, because endorphins are produced in the immune cells, and finding ways to actually help activate these opiate receptors, because let's face it, our doctors don't want us hooked on these painkillers. I mean, for goodness sake, every state that I've looked into has programs for pain reliever rehab. That's significant. We can talk about methadone clinics. We can talk about cocaine and alcohol and smoking cessation programs. We can talk about eating disorder programs. But let's talk about the pain reliever, issues that we have in this country. again, when I look around the country and I'm looking into treatment facilities and rehab centers, every state that I've looked into has something, and that speaks volumes. And I know that our doctors don't want us hooked on these prescriptions, but yet we have people who are shopping for doctors. This is not a make wrong. This is not a shame on you. This is merely going, hey, look, I get it. And there are others out there that are getting it. And we realize this. And so helping to restore relief through the use of essential oil work so that you can actually come down off of this through the help of your therapist and your counselors and your case managers or whoever you're working with. This would make the recognition that, hey, and begin to alter the chemistry within the body, because again, the constituents in the essential oils modify the genetic expression. This is how they've determined what medications to use. I've worked in treatment facilities. I've seen what happens to people who come down off of their not the medications, but more importantly, the substances, and they're going into what's called pharmacotherapy. Pharmacotherapy is the use of medications to help somebody withdraw and come back into society without the need for street drugs. Street drugs are dangerous. You don't know who you're dealing with. I've talked about essential oils. And it's really important to know who your supplier is. You know, we don't know where these things are coming from. You know, the youngest age that I've heard of in treatment facilities is at the age of 12. This is sad that our children are going on to these drugs at such a young age. Heroin use at the age of 12. My son's friend here was 15 when she started smoking heroin. So this isn't any longer about people shooting up. There are other ways to help self-soothe and help focus and be able to sit still and be a part of something and participate, as opposed to being ostracized and feeling like you're not good enough or you're stupid or whatever the judgments are. I don't know if any of that sounds familiar, but that's ADHD. We're talking about PTSD. We're talking about autism. We're talking anxiety. When we are finding ways to self-soothe naturally, we don't require, and you won't have our children going out and finding things on the street and being given things or sold things. This is, my youngest, not my youngest daughter, my older daughter was actually stealing from me so that she could get drugs at school, because she was turning around and selling it and making money and then buying her drugs. So these are very important factors for all of us to look at. Is she a bad person? No, not at all. Her history is I adopted her. She came from a rather traumatic background and was seeking ways to feel like she belonged, because her story is she was passed around for a very long time before she came into my home. So again, we don't know other people's stories. I do understand that many of us require pharmaceuticals for any number of reasons, and helping to kind of bring it all together and really treat the system holistically is important, as we holistically, as what I mean by that is collectively look at these as symptoms. It's one thing to talk to somebody who's dealing with an addiction and try to educate them with regards to what they're doing to their body. At the same time, it's really important for us to see ourselves as a society, and what we're doing is selling pharmaceuticals pill by pill, capsule by capsule. There's too many things that are going on that we're blind to, and it's holding people back from actually seeking the help they want, as well as the help they deserve. So I've said an awful lot, and I could continue saying an awful lot, but really what my desire is to help emphasize, number one, the importance of the essential oils and how they can actually help to regulate the neurotransmitters. Norepinephrine is another self-soothing one. Dopamine helps us to focus. Dopamine can be too high in schizophrenia. So can histamine. The chemical imbalances are changing. They change from person to person. So being able to hear the whole picture and understand what is really happening in that individual, and taking the time that individual deserves to be able to help them regulate, and keeping up with them and helping to guide them, because the chemistry will consistently change. That's the beauty of this body, is the body's consistently trying to regulate itself. And without the proper instructions, with what we find in plants, when they get these proper instructions, they use the nutrients more appropriately. The medications now are more effective. You don't need more of the same thing. You don't need to go on a different cocktail. You can continue to do what you're doing. So there's a lot of factors that are involved here, and pulling together as a collective group and recognizing that we're all in this together, we're helping one another, we're helping ourselves, is really, really important. And that said, that is the other reason why I'm doing these videos, is to really help level the playing field and eliminate the stigma that is going on around mental health issues, whether it be depression, anxiety, bipolar, PTSD, ADHD, autism. There's a vast spectrum. My oldest son was labeled mentally retarded and learning disabled his entire life. And really, he demonstrates now, he acts like he's, there wasn't a lot of testing for autism back then, but now he exhibits a lot of autistic tendencies. And we're helping to regulate him and relieve the anxiety, as well as the depression that he frequently experiences, but he's not using medication. So these are all things that I really want to point out. Who does what and who chooses what behavior in order to relieve and relax. Stimming, scripting, these are all, they can be almost very addictive behaviors, especially the stimming. Either the child is overstimulated or understimulated, and so they're doing something, but they can become very addictive. Not much different than the chattering you see in schizophrenia. So there again, depending on the behavior, cutting is a form of self-soothing, because it stimulates chemistry. It stimulates a reaction in the body that begins to produce other chemicals, that now we can find some relaxation and feel something. So it's very complicated, and at the same time very similar. It's really what we choose to do to help find that sense of inner peace, no matter what our health condition is, no matter what we're dealing with, whether it be addiction or an autoimmune disorder or diabetes, or it doesn't make any difference. It's our opportunity to restore our wellness. It's an opportunity, more importantly, to reframe how we see wellness and develop a relationship with ourselves, and be able to reach out and number one, ask for help, and number two, as a society, recognize that this person just wants help, and what we can do collectively to guide. And therefore, that's the reason I share all this information. So if there's any questions, please comment below. Your donations are always welcome, because I really am very passionate about restoring wellness to those who are ready for it at another level altogether, and beginning to educate people to help them see that there are other ways, that there is not just the one way that we know right now. If you have any questions, please let me know via email. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. Bye.